Hello, and welcome to your first lesson in economics. 1.1, we're going to talk about scarcity. And you're probably saying, ooh, what is scarcity? Well, let's talk about that. And I told you, a large majority of this course is going to be knowing your vocabulary terms because a lot of the rest of it is common sense. So the first thing that we need to talk about are the differences between a need and a want. A need is something essential for survival. And you've always heard food, clothing, shelter, but medical care would be in there as well because if you're having a heart attack and you don't get medical care, you're probably not going to survive. Now, want is something completely different. It's something that you desire, but it's not necessary for survival. I don't need to have my hair colored. I don't need to have an iPhone 12. I don't need to have video games. What are your basic necessities to survive? That's a need. Everything else is a want. Now, when we start talking about goods, goods are physical objects. They're going to be tangible. You can hold them in your hands. It is something that someone produces. You got food, clothing, video games. They'd be actual tangible objects. But now services are going to be intangible. You cannot touch them. I'm teaching you right now. You can't grab on to that teaching and say, oh, here's the teaching. If you're getting a haircut, the person actually doing the service of cutting the hair, you can't touch that. So that's going to be services. And there are sometimes when you get a good and a service, I always use an oil change. When you go to get the oil change in your car, you're getting the good of the new oil, but the service is the person that changed out the bad oil and the new oil. Now, scarcity. This is the whole concept that there's a limited amount of goods and services available to meet our unlimited wants. And you might say unlimited wants. I'm going to give you this scenario. If I gave all of you a genie in a bottle and it granted you unlimited wishes, would you ever stop wishing? And usually in a classroom setting, there'll always be someone that goes, oh, me. And I'm like, you'll get to a point you stop wishing. And think about it. And this is something that happens. It's going to happen over the course of your life. I remember being in high school going, oh my gosh, if I just had my own place, if I just had an apartment, I'd be happy. Well, then I got an apartment and everybody around me was noisy. And I'm like, and I climbed upstairs. I'd rather just have a house. If I just had a house, I'd be happy. Well, then my house was small. It was a starter home. I had 2 kids. We kind of outgrew it. Now I needed a bigger home. And again, as you go through life, that's going to happen. And, if you ever look at the really wealthy people, you always wonder, like, I heard a story of one guy that had 12 homes. Do you really need more than one? But again, it's those unlimited wants. That's part of human nature that we keep wanting things. Well, scarcity is going to come in there. And like if every one of us in the whole world wanted an iPhone 12, we can't all get one today. There's a certain amount of time that it takes to produce that iPhone before you can give it to a customer. And that's scarcity. If I want water, I don't have it in my classroom. I've got to actually get up, go to the office, fill up my water bottle to have it. So if a student asks me for water, I can't just snap my fingers and there it is. I'm going to have to actually go and get the water. And if we go back even further than that, how long did it take from the time the water went through the treatment plant to go through the pipes to the school to get here? Again, it's not all a snap of our finger. So that's what we're going to be discussing. Because I've already said economics is the study of how people seek to satisfy their needs and wants by making choices. And most of you are probably doing that by now. You're seniors. A lot of you have had a job. Well, if you get a paycheck for $200, do you have to decide how you're going to spend it? And some of you are like, it has to go straight to my car payment, my insurance payment before I can do anything else. I have to do that. I have to, when I get my paycheck, decide, where is the money going? And there's all those, bills I have to pay, my house, my light bill, my water bill, the natural gas bill. Do I want cable? Do I want internet? And once all that stuff is done, then if I have money left over, I might be able to go play, go out to dinner, do things like that. So you've been doing this for a long time. Even when you were a little kid, if your grandparent gave you a $20 bill, you probably decided, what did you want to do with that money? Did you want to put it in a savings account or did you want to go spend it? And it's not always necessarily about money. We can be making a decision based on our time. You know, how much time do you want to spend on something? Do I want to spend 8 hours on something that's going to like only give me $20? Does anybody want to go work a job for $1 an hour? No. Okay. Those are all economic decisions. Now, a shortage is different from scarcity. Okay. Everything is scarce. Some things are more scarce than others. Some things it takes a longer time to produce. A shortage is going to be something at a particular time. We have had a shortage through COVID for toilet paper. I still don't know why, but there's a shortage. But all toilet paper is scarce because it takes a certain amount of time to cut down the trees, make it into the paper pulp, turn it into toilet paper, roll it on the roll, put it on the truck, ship it to the store for me to get it. So big difference between shortage and scarcity. Entrepreneurs. When I hear entrepreneurs, I think of a business owner, someone that owns their own business, but not necessarily. An entrepreneur is more broad. That's people who decide how to combine resources to create new goods and services. The iPhone. This is a great example. Before the iPhone, you had an iPod and a cell phone. So you had one in each back pocket. That was a lot to deal with. Somebody came up with the idea to be able to add all the features of an iPod with your music into a phone. Then someone figured out how to add the smartphone, the internet. So now you kind of have a computer access, music library, all kinds of things in one. So when we start talking about scarcity, we're going to talk about factors of production. And this is one of our goals, is for you to know the factors of production. And those are the resources used to make all goods and services. And we can divide those into 3 different categories: land, labor, and capital. Land is the easiest one to categorize because it's anything that occurs in nature. If you're using a tree, if you're using water, fruits, vegetables, cattle, those are all land. Labor is also easy. That is the effort people devote to the tasks. So if I'm physically working, that's labor. Now, capital is everything that's not land and labor. It's a human-made resource that's used to produce other goods and services. So, for example, this pen here could be capital because I'm using it to write and produce other things. My laptop is capital because I'm using it to provide instruction. And then when we get into capital, that can be broken down into 2 additional ones. You got physical capital. So this would be physical capital. I can touch it. It's going to be tangible. If my remote to turn on my TV, my phone, all of this is physical capital. Oops, got my light on. Human capital, this is different. It's up here in your brain. It's what's here. This is why you've been in school for 13 years. Human capital. This is why a lot of you will go on to trade school or college. Human capital. It's your knowledge and skills that you gain through education and experience. And if you think about that, you kind of know that. Some people get paid more at their job because they have more experience, because they have more knowledge. Some people get paid better at their job, like a carpenter, because they are excellent at woodworking. That's human capital. And if you think about it, your resume is nothing but a list of your human capital. So what does that mean? Scarcity means we have to make choices. Again, unlimited wants. I'd love to have, a never-ending bank account. Think of what all I could buy, but I don't. I have a specific salary, a specific amount of money I make, so I have to make choices. Even like buying a new video game or like an iPhone 12. I don't want to buy one right now. I have an 11. Car insurance, you got to have car insurance. Like if I want to, and you see behind me, I really, really want to be at the beach. Oh, really bad. But I have limited funds, so I can't just go off and take a trip every time I get the urge to, because I have to have the money. And again, what comes first? My house, my car, my bills. So I want you to pause the video, take a time to watch this excellent YouTube video about scarcity. I won't go through it with you. So again, scarcity means that we have to make choices. Again, unlimited wants, limited resources, and that concept I already touched on. Scarcity does not necessarily mean a shortage. Okay? There's not a shortage of Rubik's Cubes right now. We have a shortage of toilet paper, but Rubik's Cubes and toilet paper are both scarce. Now, the United States, we tend to be an affluent society when you're talking worldwide. But even then, you're making choices. Y'all have been shopping for clothes for a long time. Okay? And you probably think, well, I just bought what I liked and not what I didn't. No, but there also are times when you look at the price tag. I've been one of those people that's been shopping and went, oh, I love this. That's too expensive. Not worth it. Or something that's full price that isn't worth it, but when it gets on the sale rack, all of a sudden, ooh, yeah, now I like it. $20, yes, down from $50. We make those economic choices. That's why I said a lot of this is common sense. Countries even face scarcity. And if we look at this world map here, the United States, we have a shortage of petroleum. We need petroleum to make gasoline. We buy a lot of it from the Middle East over here because they have a abundant supply. Now, does that mean that there's a shortage of petroleum out here in the Middle East? No, but is it still scarce? Yes, because you've probably learned in science it takes millions of years for the earth to develop petroleum, to develop oil. And we have very few places we can drill in North America. Brazil is lacking in infrastructure. And infrastructure are your roads, your buildings. If you want to have a city that's working, you need to have buildings that people can rent to start a business. You need to have roads so people can get there. Schools, police, fire, government, all of that's infrastructure. Now, Japan's this little island over here, and it has a shortage in mineral resources. So it relies on importing and exporting to other countries to get those resources in. The Jordan here, it looks pink and then it's yellow. Yeah, that's the desert. Do you think they have a lot of water? No, they have a shortage of water. Water's always scarce, but they have a shortage of it. And then in Germany, they have a shortage of skilled labor. Now, entrepreneurs, they are going to be those people that take those factors of production and they turn it into something new. They play a huge role. We need entrepreneurs in our economy. Entrepreneurs are creating new ideas, creating new businesses, and when they do that, they create jobs. Okay? Entrepreneurs are also willing to take risks because you could open a business and it could fold. I took a huge risk when I was an entrepreneur and opened my business because if the business failed, I still had to pay off all the debt to start it. But again, when they're successful, I had 12 employees at one point. Yeah, it was really good. Now, this is a timeline here of entrepreneurs. Obviously, everybody knows Bill Gates, Paul Allen. Yeah, I really know. They started selling software and ended up being Microsoft. It's huge. Microsoft's huge now. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, Apple. I mean, look at the iPhone. Like right now, you're either iPhone or Samsung. And there are people I know that have different phones, but the two big players, iPhone and Samsung. Oprah Winfrey, she like boomed with her talk show. And interesting fact, Oprah Winfrey started as a newscaster in Nashville. She actually graduated from Tennessee State University. And somebody saw her here, then they recruited her to Chicago for the news, and then she just like exploded and got her own talk show and everything. The Yahoo search engine, Amazon.com. I mean, I'm an Amazon junkie right now. Google, Twitter, YouTube. And what's interesting is a lot of these companies started in a garage. Microsoft did. Apple started in someone's garage. And look where they are now. Now, what does an entrepreneur do? The first thing is you've got to recognize a need or a want. You got to have an idea. Or, like somebody did with the phone. Oh, everybody likes their iPod. Everybody likes their phone. Is there a way to get it all in one? Then they're going to take those factors of production, the land, labor, and capital, and they are going to somehow assemble it to provide this good, or it could be a service. Okay? It could be a service. And that's what's going to make them an entrepreneur. Now, one of those factors of production are human capital. Obviously, the entrepreneur is going to have their own human capital, but as the business gets bigger, when it's beyond them, you've got to have employees that have human capital. When I had my business, I went out and looked, because it was a cheerleading gym. I had to look for some of the best instructors, not just anybody that would take the job. I wanted people that were qualified and were going to be good. So I'd look at their resume and their human capital. All resources are scarce. Everything is. So let's talk about if you get a Subway sandwich. Okay. Sure, you're probably thinking, well, I walked in and, once the person started making it, then it took about 2 minutes. Let's go back further. Okay. The bread started as wheat. You had to take the time for the wheat to grow. Then they had to mill it, pound it into flour, get that flour, send it to where it could be made into bread dough, and then the bread had to bake. That's a long time. Cheese starts as milk from a cow. Then you have to create the cheese, which takes some time, put it in the truck, send it to where I can get it. The chicken has to start as an egg that hatches, becomes a chicken, is big enough to be harvested. Lettuce and tomatoes have to be grown. So again, if we look at scarcity, if all of a sudden there was a huge demand right now for chicken, we can't just snap our fingers and have more chicken. We have to start way back at the egg, produce more eggs to grow into chickens to get big enough to increase the amount of chicken sold. And if you look here, this is a woman creating those sandwiches we talked about. You might sit there and go, oh, she's got a ton of stuff. But no, there's scarcity. Because again, we just talked about that. How long does it take to grow a tomato to get to this point to sell? Yep. And that is the end of 1.1. And hope you enjoyed it. Work on your homework, and I will see you for the next class.